Good afternoon, guys, and welcome back. Thank you if you've been with us most of the day. We've had an amazing day so far. We've had my opening speech and obviously how to market and digital marketing and content marketing with Julia Labassiere from DDA, which was absolutely amazing. And welcome. We've got a real treat for you. Those of you guys who've been in TV, you will remember Miss Angela Chan. It's Professor, isn't it? I must
I'm a
address you.
bit miss Professor or Doctor to you, babe.
Oh, excuse me, Dr. Chan. But what a pleasure. What an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Angela's going to talk to us about kind of emerging immersive content and AI and how that's going to impact. And obviously, I'm sure she's going to touch on biases and what we can be doing to ensure that we're training our AI properly so that it's reflecting our stories. Great. I'm going to, before we get started, let me just get some signals in the chat. Let's see who's in the room. Let's see who's in the room. Just say
I've had a
hi.
look at
Just
both of them.
say that.
I've had
There's
a
two.
look at
Is
both
that?
of
Oh my
them.
God! No, people will join. People will
Hi,
continue to join.
hi, Shug.
Yeah, please put your name in the. Don't be shy. Put your name in the chat. And also don't forget to use our chat facility and question facilities as well. Also, just to let you know that obviously TVC Live is kind of the conversations and the events that we do kind of regularly, monthly, and all the sessions will be available live online. Lily, if you can hear me, can you come on stage and just give people a quick whiz bang tour around what facilities on here and how to use it and how to connect with others, please.
I would love to. So welcome, Tech Girlies.
Mm.
I'm very excited for this. As someone who's slightly skeptical about AI, I'm actually really open to actually learning about what it is. So let's get started. At the top of your screen, you will see the schedule. So we'll start there, and obviously that's all our sessions all day, every day. Our next session is at 5:30, and it's 5 minute speed networking session. Highly recommend you join. You will also see a little icon that looks like a newspaper. That is our feed. So that is the main chat for the entire festival. If you post in there, it will go everywhere from reception to inside sessions. And next to that, you will see the little people icon. That is everybody who is registered to attend the festival. And what's great about this little icon is that you can search for people. I'm sorry, Dr. Chan, but let's type in Angela and you will see Angela Chan, and you can DM her or request some private time with her if Dr. Chan is available. So yeah, you can DM and make that connection with literally anybody else at this festival. It's an amazing resource. And next to that, you'll see your DM, so you can privately message anybody. And then down the right-hand side, you will find the menu for just this session. So at the top, we've got chat, which I can see you're already using. Hello, Grayson. Lovely to see you. If you have questions for Dr. Chan, please put them in the Q&A section underneath. That just helps me and Simone moderate them, make sure we can get you up on stage to ask your question. You can then obviously chat directly with the people who are in this session right now. There's a number of you. There's also a poll that Dr. Chan's already created. Thank you. It's nice to have somebody else techie here, which you'll be answering later. And then any other resources that Dr. Chan brings up, I can post them here for you. You'll also find them in the resources tab when you go back to reception. Don't forget about when you're in reception, you'll see the blue screen with our logo, and you'll see the reception tab. Next to that, you'll have the lounge tab. That is our literal lounge where you can join a table and network with anyone else 24 hours a day until the 28th of September. And then the third tab is resources, and that's anything to do with any of these sessions will all be posted there for you.
Fantastic, Lily. That was a stonking amazing job. And guys, don't forget to use hashtag TVC Live if to share any comments online. Angela, I'm gonna let you jump straight into it, man. I don't want to waste any time. I'm gonna hand over to you. I know that you've got loads to share with us and loads to tell us. So I'm gonna hand over to you. I'm gonna be backstage but listening intently, and we'll jump back on stage. Guys, please don't forget to put in loads of your questions. Like Lily said, you can put the questions in chat, but ideally put them in the questions section, which is just under chat. And then we'll have plenty of time to bring you either up on stage or share the questions with Angela. Angela, what an absolute joy to see you. I'm jumping off backstage, love. I'll see you in a minute. Oh,
All
what's
right.
up?
Hello, everybody. Grace, and I'm very impressed that you've joined us from Canada. And Jay Davidson sent me an hug. Hi. There's some familiar faces there, old friends and new. Thank you very much for joining. Now, I'm still very much a TV producer at heart. I know a thing or two about AI and immersive technologies. I do not know everything. So if there's any AI experts out there, feel free to call me out. Also say once I start sharing my slides, I can't see the chat. I can't see anything. So feel free to ask questions. Simone will interrupt me, and I'm really happy to be interrupted. I think I've pitched it at a level where anybody can understand it, but I may have lost sight of that already. So a little bit about my history. I was in TV, 30 years, woman and girl. And I left television about 5 years ago to do my PhD, which was in immersive, and I was looking at inclusive innovation and whether you could use these new technologies for a more inclusive and representative media. It's a really big question right now. I think AI is as likely to take us backwards as forwards. There's huge risks. So I'm sure many of you will have seen the doomsday headlines, but I'm also excited about the democratic possibilities. So today I'm going to be showing you some of the tools that are coming online that are enabling. To an extent, we've always worked with technology, and I think filmmakers have always been at the forefront of that. And we're testing the limits of what it can do. And I'm also going to talk about some of the risks of representation and why those things happen. I started my career in music video, somewhere between a cab firm and a cheese shop on Gooch Street. And man, was it smelly in the morning. And I loved music video because actually it was one of the most experimental places technology wise. I remember making a Mike Flowers Pops video and our exec going, "Can you put glasses on him?" And everyone laughed at her. Nowadays, you can easily put glasses on him. But television I always found was a little bit retroactive, a little bit nervous about trying new things. I don't think it's the most progressive place to be. So I want to encourage you to learn all about new technology before you dismiss it, because it's really important that filmmakers who are at that kind of bleeding edge of representation issues engage with it and know what's okay, what's not okay, what you're the guardians of, what you're not, what you can't control, and what you can control. So I'm going to share some slides with you. I'm going to talk quite a lot about AI, and you're really welcome to go. I have no idea what you're talking about. At the end, we'll do a little poll. I was just telling Simone, I actually managed to clear a room or clear a table on Saturday. I went to a party where there were a lot of actors and directors, and they asked me what I did, and I started talking about AI, and I didn't mean to, I really offended some people. So, I really got in touch with the fact that some people are very threatened by this, and they probably should be. But there are also, really exciting possibilities for access to creative tools and, things that have only been open to movie directors really before, which will become commonplace and you'll be able to do on your iPhone. So I'm going to try and share my screen. I could do with a comment in a moment to tell me whether I've done that successfully or not. Oh, God, where's it gone? Wait a minute.
Don't worry.
I'm
Yeah, and Lily to the rescue. I was just going to say, Lily to the
No, it
rescue.
might do it. It's all right. It might do it. It just disappeared for a moment. It's very fussy.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'll climb on stage.
Yeah. Can you see it? Lily, can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it.
All right. Now I can't see it.
And now I can see it. Perfect.
All right, so I'm just going to start talking, and you want to interrupt me, interrupt me. So we're going to talk a lot about tools, right? And I want you to have this approach that these are tools for the creative industries. Remember, I've gone from being a television professional, a documentary maker, exec producer, and just before I left, head of creative diversity at Channel 4. But I am now a professor, and although I don't have to teach for a living, I have become a bit lectury. So let's make it a conversation. Feel free to interrupt. So in this session, we're going to talk about the changing landscape, some of the new AI tools that are coming online. Most of them aren't here yet, I have to say, apart from a bit of rather cheesy image generation, which looks a bit like an Athena poster back in the 80s. We're going to talk about bias and representational issues and risks, and about other production tools. So AI is not the only game in town, virtual production and where it's going, convergent screen technology. And then I'm going to try and leave at least a third of this session to talk about you and your beautiful career and what the fuck it's got to do with me. Because actually, I think a lot of people are in that space. We go, yeah, I hear about all this stuff, but how's it going to affect me? You know, how can you get involved? What are the considerations for you as a drama director or a doc director or a production manager or whatever? So I thought I'd have a go at my career in 5 technologies. So I started at the BBC on their production trainee scheme in 1998. And I started by learning how to cut 3/4 inch tape on one of these reel to reels. It seems unbelievable now that we were having to physically stick it. And I've always been a bit ham fisted. So that wasn't an easy task for me, sticking the tape together to make a radio show. I was one of the first directors to use these DV cameras, which a few of you will remember. They were a bit placky and bits fell off them, but it was an incredible moment of freedom not to have to deal with 2 surly men, usually men, you know, dragging a crew around, but you also had to adjust to the fact that your pictures didn't look quite so beautiful and things went wrong. I remember once going all the way to Montreal to interview an astronaut who'd just come back from the International Space Station. The pictures were beautiful, but I messed up the sound. Uh, Simple things like wireless radio mics made a massive difference. You know, if you're an observational director, the freedom of these technologies to really start to draw the humanity out of what you were shooting were incredible. And of course, now we're at Gen AI, where I can literally turn myself into anything, even like a Dynasty style hottie, certified hottie. And the Apple Vision Pro has not arrived in the UK yet, but is going to change the market. We've been via lots of clunky VR headsets. This does, of course, still look like a pair of ski goggles, but I think it is going to start to change the way we interact as they get simpler and simpler. I have another presentation called My Career in as Employers as 5 Bad Boyfriends, but I'll save that one for another occasion. Let's talk about digital humans. So the digital human technology is becoming much more sophisticated. This is actually a couple of years old now. Unreal Engine, Epic Games created some software called MetaHuman, where you could basically put your face on a mesh and make it say anything. So I'm just going to play this video. I hope you can hear and see it all right, so you get an idea.
I could be one of many.
Je pourrais être architecte, un artiste.
You create the narrative. I am MetaHuman.
I'm hoping I can move to the next slide and not show you all those videos. Still there. So as you see, that was 2021. Now you might care to look at Synthesia's website during this session or after this session. You know, you can generate an AI avatar of yourself from a couple of images pretty quickly. You can see in 2021, there's still a little bit of uncanny valley when you see the full figure of the black guy. There's that slightly robotic movement. That's going now. And this is like becoming very sort of easy to access consumer technology. I think that this is going to change the landscape of television, whether it's fiction, hopefully not factual, but you know, we're the guardians of that. My husband, who is an editor, is already saying that, you know, when they've got a black hole, someone hasn't said something in an interview, a factual program, they start to fill it with an AI voice, just as a, you know, rather than the editor's voice. And of course, people get used to that sync and then say, well, why can't they say that? Go and get it. So, you know, I think these things are already sneaking into our production processes. This next one is about dialogue removal. I don't know if any of you saw the film The Fall. This is a really brilliant example of how AI can start to really work very cleverly with technologies that can just change the mouth, change the voice. It cuts down on retakes, but as you can see, is pretty risky.
Now we're stuck on this stupid tower in the middle of nowhere. And I don't blame you. And now we're stuck on this stupid freaking tower in the middle of freaking nowhere. And it's all my fault.
Y es todo por mi culpa.
I mean, literally, you could do anything, right? You know, who hasn't been
Now we're
tempted?
stuck.
No, we're not stuck on that freaking tower anymore. Who hasn't been tempted in a factual edit? You know, often, well, every now and then, the media gets interested in how people have spliced sentences together. That's been going on for a very, very long time. But, you know, you are the guardians as the director or the editorial person in control of checking that there is some truth remaining in that splicing together. That kind of technology I do find quite scary and brilliant all at the same time, because it does allow you to do many, many things. It's incredibly useful for fiction. Even scarier when you think about the possibility of there being no actor, or actors being routinely scanned as part of their contract in order to bring you back in a dream sequence without paying you, for instance, or just fixing a duff take. Starting to get a bit more technical. There's a bunch of things coming out which are to do with something called radiance fields. You don't really need to know what that means. There are various technologies like Gaussian splats, nerfs, and various things which just create post-production moves. What it means is really you could take one or two still images, you could supplement it with videos or drone shots. Say you've got a woman sitting on a rock. You could take a photo of the back and the algorithm would interpret what's around the front. So you could do that epic fly-through opening sequence. I'm going to show you a bit of Usher's recent video for Ruin, which was entirely shot on an iPhone 15, which seems amazing for a star of that magnitude. I'll fast forward through it a bit so you can see the effect. It doesn't look that radical as an effect, but I think what you'll be able to see, where it sort of stops and starts, it's done from a basic set of still images, but it allows you to control the movement of characters within the scene. Let's go. I'm gonna like fast forward through the spicy bit in case anyone's offended. Sorry. Much really track. I can't get rid of it now. So you've seen, you know, you see the move. It's not, you know, they've used it quite sparingly though, but shot on an iPhone 15. I mean, and a lot of post-production, right? But what that Gaussian splat allows you to do is actually never leave your bedroom to make a movie. Eventually this will become consumer technology. It's very, very clever. What it interpolates around the front, if you don't have a photo of the front, is something else. But you know, you could use the add epic tool for whatever you're making, and that's a very achievable technology for a bedroom filmmaker. So that I find exciting. If I'm an actor or a cameraman or a steady cam op or a crane op, I'm probably a bit less excited by that technology. But you see what I mean? All these technologies have a pro and a con, and there's things to be excited about as a filmmaker, and there's things to be terrified of if you're in a particular job. We'll come back to AI, but I want to talk a bit about immersive technology now. So I'm now head of inclusion for the CoStar National Lab, which is a new network of labs around the UK, doing research and building practical facilities for the industry to use. So we're going to be building a new studio at Pinewood, which is a combination of virtual production studios, spatial audio testing spaces, places for directors, filmmakers, advertising, anyone to come and test the tech and do stuff. It's real hands-on stuff, and we'll be issuing funded calls to try out new things within different contexts. But we came out of a lab called Story Futures, which was part of the government's Creative Clusters program. And it was really trying to boost immersive technology. So we were doing a lot of VR and AR projects. The interesting thing about VR and AR is, you know, you'll see all these predictions of the market becoming 8 billion or, you know, ever more hyperbolic. it sort of has taken off. You know, it's a niche market, certainly used within gaming to an extent, more used actually within the military industrial complex. It's really been taken up a lot by training, especially where training involves risk in person. And the military use it a hell of a lot. In fact, a lot of these developments were funded by the military in the first place. We had a University of Southern California visit the other day, and they're actually funded by the Department of Defense. So this is what we're up against in a way. A lot of this funding doesn't come with the best of intentions, but it makes its way into Hollywood. So that sort of blew my mind. But, you know, immersive is an interesting sector. It's quite a hard place to get work in. But I suspect a lot of these things will start to converge with the Apple Vision Pro, which is allowing people to start to integrate what we've learned from virtual reality and augmented reality in the environment as you walk around. So VR is, of course, with headsets and augmented reality, one tends to do through one's phone. But what the Apple Vision Pro does, because it overlays effectively your phone over your field of vision, is start to blend what's VR and AR. So AR, you should be able to see the world through that. At the same time, VR, you're in an enclosed space, for anyone who doesn't know. But, you know, wait and see. If you're interested in opportunities right now and you're of an artistic leaning, you might have a look at Watershed, which is the Bristol Art Gallery's Watershed's Immersive Arts Programme. You'll be able to download this deck as a resource, and it's in the notes, but it's watershed.co.uk/about-immersive-arts. Google Immersive Arts and Watershed. And it's a 3-year program supporting artists to explore the potential of immersive tools within their creative practice. I think that's quite exciting. They've got a call out for comedy writers at the moment, because a lot of immersive content, there's been a lot about marginalized voices, but it can be a bit dour. So they're trying to see what immersive or virtual reality could do with comedy. But there are funded opportunities around like that. And if, like quite a lot of people in the creative industries, you're in between jobs, they're worth looking into. And they really are there to build a community of peers, do training, mentoring, and help people get their ideas off the ground. So immersive, it's not gone away. I think it's a little bit in transition, hard to actually make a career in it at the moment. One thing we were really pleased to see, because we ran the Story Futures training arm with the NFTS, was that it was actually predominantly people from diverse ethnic backgrounds and women who were interested in our courses. So I think people sometimes see it as a space that hasn't yet been defined yet by the hierarchy. And, you know, I think new technology is a great way to start to distinguish yourself in your career going forward. Let's talk a bit more about AI, if you can bear it. Are you still with me? Simone, say hey. I always get nervous everyone's gone away. Da, 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 da. Right, no one's saying hey, so I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah, I'm here
yeah.
and I'm listening, and it's wonderful and it's fantastic.
All right.
I'm fascinated. Like somebody put in the chat, Watershed sounds fascinating. We are all here glued. We don't even know what to say, Angela, because it's like my mind is.
I've gone full nerd, okay? So I don't actually
We're loving
know
it. We're
boring
loving
stuff
it.
anymore.
Guys, please put your questions if you have any in chat. And in chat and in the questions, and just give yes, everybody, good talk. Everyone's loving it. Everybody's
All
loving
right.
it.
Well,
So you do
whether you're
your
loving
thing.
it or not, it's about to get technical, okay? But I'm
All
going
right, you do you. Speak to you in a little
I'm
bit.
going to try and keep it simple. So you don't really have to deeply understand what these things mean, but I know I'm still confused about the various terminology within AI. Don't be ashamed. Always ask. I spend my time every day asking the experts stupid questions. So artificial intelligence is a very, very broad term about programs with the ability to learn and reason like humans. We don't really know how the human brain works. So this is sort of mimicry of humans, if you like. Machine learning works with algorithms with the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed. This is where it starts to get a little scary, because I tell you, none of those AI experts know what's in the black box. They really don't. They've trained it on millions and millions of bits of data, and what the machine does with it next is a mystery. So they don't always know why you've ended up at a certain outcome. We'll talk a bit more about that in a minute, because I've got my own little games I play with ChatGPT. Deep learning neural networks is a subset of machine learning in which artificial neural networks learn from large data sets. Don't really ask me what that means. It's a different way of getting a machine to come up with an outcome, which is very, very clever. That's about as far as I go. And data science is this kind of cross-disciplinary field that seeks to extract value from the data. In a way, we've all got the opportunity to become data scientists now, to go, well, what the hell can I do with this? And that is the main question, what's it all for? So I want to get into talking about some of the representational risks. I hope you won't mind. I found a video that said it a lot better than I can, and I won't play you all of it, but I thought it was rather brilliant. This is by, started with an undergraduate's project called Beyond the Hype, Understanding Bias in AI and Its Far-Reaching Consequences by Anna Howard. So let's credit her from the London Interdisciplinary School. And it was based on an article by BuzzFeed that talked about what Barbies from different countries would look like. So let's just watch this for a minute or so.
This is why you should avoid mixing Barbie with biased AI image generators.
Note the machine.
What does a typical prisoner look like? What about a lawyer, a nurse, a drug dealer? What about a fast food worker, a cleaner, a terrorist, or a CEO? These are all images created by an artificial intelligence image generator called Midjourney, which creates unique images based off of simple word prompts. These AI image generators have exploded in popularity thanks to their impressive results and ease of use. Within a few years, as much as 90% of the images on the internet could be artificially generated. Given that generative AI will have a huge impact in shaping our visual landscape, it's important to understand that the reality it presents can often be distorted, where harmful biases relating to gender, race, age, and skin color can be more exaggerated and more extreme than in the real world. Leonardo Nicoletti and Dina Bass at Bloomberg Technology generated and analyzed more than 5,000 images created by Stable Diffusion. They prompted it to generate portraits of workers in different professions and sorted the images according to skin tone and perceived gender. They found that higher paying professions like CEO, lawyer, and politician were dominated by lighter skin tones, while subjects with darker skin tones were more commonly associated with lower income jobs like dishwasher, janitor, and fast food worker. A similar story emerged when categorizing by gender, with higher income jobs such as doctors, CEOs, and engineers being predominantly represented by men, whilst professions like cashier, social worker, and housekeeper were mostly represented by women. These racial and gender biases were found to be stronger than the reality of what was recorded in the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. For instance, women make up 39% of doctors in the US, but only appeared in 7% of the images. These exaggerated biases that AI systems create are known as representational harms. These are harms which degrade certain social groups by reinforcing the status quo or by amplifying stereotypes. This is what.
Right, going to move on because we could go on forever. Again, watch that video in full. It's about 8 minutes.
Just quickly. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just going to say really quickly, we posted that on our online platform, the Barbie video.
Oh,
And
good.
we also, which it was interesting, those kind of images of Barbie around the world and what she would look like and some of the biases. I just wanted to jump in. So everybody, obviously we'll post this, but if anyone wants to see that, they can see that online. And I know that Fatu was saying that she sees that every time she sees that clip, she's also fascinated and frightened at the same time, which I think we all are. And race representation and riots is what we covered in the podcast. So these conversations are so important in terms of how we're represented.
You can hear it more than once, all this stuff, because I mean, everything. It's interesting. I've just spent these 2 days at an AI and visual arts conference, and by their own admission, what computer vision people do is all rush into the same space to just try and do something. So we were talking about this thing called image transfer, where they all try and make an image look like a Monet and understand the properties of a Monet painting and how to get an image to look like that. But the things I learned from this 2 days in Bath were that everything is trained on photographs for a start. So it doesn't really understand representation like other representations. So whether it's painting or it understands the world through photographs, and of course the limited world of photographs and the bias in historical imaging starts to have an effect on this, but it is much more sophisticated than that. So I want to talk a bit about data sets. So don't be scared by this phrase. A data set's just a collection of discrete, i.e. separate items of related data that can be accessed individually or in combination or managed as a whole. And what we're talking about here is about AI and data bias and the contested nature of imagery. But really, it's about missing data sets. So who can tell me what the missing data set on my slide is? Simone? All right, I'll tell you. The missing data set here is vowels.
Vowels.
Oh, they represent about 20% of the alphabet. I think that's slightly less than the ethnic minority population of the UK. And you can see that without 20% of your full data set, is absolute nonsense. So, you know, diversity fails are almost always caused by missing data sets, whether that's the data you as a creator or a CEO or a marketing person choose to bring to the picture. But now they are occurring because there's data missing in the technology. And that's a worry, because the data is out there. It's just choosing not to see it, or it's not finding it. And the scientists don't really know how to fix it. So that's the worry. And the more, you know, I mean, that's about, I think it was 96% of images are going to have some generative AI in it. That's terrifying, because this is really retrospective. I sit on a number of boards, and one is a bank. And they said the scary thing is that everyone's sending us their documents with generative AI images, and their diversity team, which is 13 strong, can't keep up with all the text and images that are like slightly off. You know, that if you're a minority, you see it and go, that's a bit off. But they have no image checker at the moment. And, you know, we're going to start to notice those things more and more, where you might notice it's a bit off, but maybe the white population doesn't. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a brief history of color photography here. This here is a lovely lady called Shirley. She was actually the PA to the boss of Kodak. Now, there's so much sexual politics going on in these images, I don't even want to go there. The point I'm making in telling you this story is that actually, to an extent, the battle between race, gender, technology was ever thus. You know, data inputs in the real world have always been unmatched. So technology has always had this bias built in because of who's making the decisions. In this case, Shirley's boss. This is also Shirley. And these are also Shirley. Poor Shirley, it's not actually her fault. These are what were known as the Shirley cards. For many years, this Shirley card, named for the original model, was used by photolabs to calibrate skin tones, shadows, and light during the printing process. So if any of you got used to grey cards, this was the equivalent of a grey card, but for colour photography. Color bias was built into the system from day one. And as any film photographer will know, the dynamic range built into cameras, film, emulsion, printing process made it really hard to expose for black skin. And this was a decision at some point about how that technology was going to work. So it wasn't until the 90s that Shirley cards became a little more diverse. When I was doing this presentation recently, someone said, you know why that was, wasn't it? Don't you? It's not because multiculturalism had suddenly put pressure on Kodak. It was because one of their major clients was a wood manufacturer, a furniture manufacturer, and they needed to have a better range of skin tones to match the mid-tones of wood. You'll see there's a cello in the picture. So I hope that story's true, and I hate the fact that it probably is. But it's remarkable how slowly these things move and how long it took between the 50s and the 90s to start to make Shirley, well, I'd say multicultural, but they appear to be in some sort of national dress. So we've got this issue with AI and biased data sets, and that's not just about dark skin. This chap is a gentleman called Richard Lee on the right, a gentleman of Asian descent from New Zealand, and he was one of the first of many to point out that the new software his government had employed for passports didn't work for all ethnic groups, as his picture kept being rejected for having his eyes closed. Joy Bolamwini, I'm sure some of you will have seen the Netflix documentary that she features in called Biased, was one of the first researchers to show that Microsoft facial recognition software could recognize 99% of white faces, but only recognize 27% of black faces. And actually AI, Google and others, it's called techno-racism. They've at various points withdrawn their software because of the low rates of facial recognition. So techno-racism is a thing. Digital technologies being widely used now by government agencies and private companies can unwittingly, I'm not sure about that word, can lazily discriminate against people of colour. And this is a part of a new and a really crucial battle for civil rights. Crime, mortgages, banks, all commercial facial recognition technologies used by Amazon, IBM, Microsoft have been found to be 40% inaccurate when identifying black people. And, you know, there are some very real cases of people being imprisoned because they look vaguely similar to somebody, and facial recognition technology works on a mask, you know, and there are similarities of that kind of, in that kind of grid. So it's not just visual, it's based on biometrics, but some people do share similar biometrics. And of course, recently this has gone the other way. AI generators, image generators have tried to do a corrective bias. So Google, now imagine how long it took them to develop this project. Google began offering image generation through its through Gemini, which was barred. early this year or last year, trying to match the offerings of competitors like OpenAI. And after social media posts started to sort of test the system a little bit, it came up with Asian SS officers, black presidents. And curiously, though, this top right picture is actually of American women. Now, I would say that's probably more representative than quite a lot of images I've seen of American women. I'm pretty sure if you Google American women now, you would not get such a true representation of the black or Latino population. Anyway, only because people complained that it was so woke and over-representing did they pull it. If it had been under-representing, I wonder if the same thing would have happened. So I do a regular little round robin of some of the image generators. I'm particularly fond of DALL-E, which is OpenAI's one on ChatGPT, to see what happens when I ask it a basic question. And every time I meet an AI computer vision specialist, I ask them why this is. They can't totally tell me, but this is what happens when you ask for an image of a diverse boardroom. I deliberately choose boardroom because it will give me a few stereotypes to do with what they think is in professional life. So when you first ask about a diverse boardroom, it'll give you different ethnic backgrounds, genders, ages, but there's usually black people missing. It might give you a sort of Middle Eastern, East Asian, very rarely South Asian. And this is maybe to do with the biases of the people who are making the technology or investing. I'm not sure. Nobody can answer that question for me. When I ask it to include some better ethnic diversity, I think at a push, I maybe get, well, what have we got there? 3 or 4 black people. When I ask it to give me a boardroom full of black women, I hope no one's offended by this. I find it absolutely fascinating. I can get a boardroom full of black women. For a while, I couldn't get rid of the blondes. But have you noticed something about these women? They are, in fact, the same woman with the odd different hairstyle, the same clothes, the same high heel funny shoes, one with an afro, and the same suit. So why did this happen? Well, the truth is, even those who've built the damn thing don't really know. These black boxes are built on training data. I think the system is probably playing it safe by putting them in a single outfit, and that you can tell an AI system not to do something. So it knows, say, not to put people in national costume like Kodak did. It knows not to dress them a certain way when you say boardroom. But, we don't really know why. If you start pushing the AI, it starts to get really crazy. So I'm going to show you some of the similar ones I do with disability. If I ask for an accessible office, I tend to get a wheelchair. At least it can do a wheelchair now. But they're always at the bottom, looking up longingly, never a lift. I can ask it for a lift. It'll give me a list. If I say, please could you make the office a bit more accessible, or there need to be ramps, I get something like this. This is getting like an Escher drawing. It's hallucinatory, but it can't do spatial complex interactions. So I think we're a way off actually sort of making believable worlds with generative AI. And this is just single images. We're a way off being able to do this with video because it takes so much compute. So for instance, I asked my colleagues at Surrey, who are one of the leading AI universities, if we're going to be doing video with the National Lab. And he said, well, if you just want to do a ball rolling across a landscape, I'd have to ask for all the AI compute of Surrey just for me for 3 months. If you want to do a dog interacting with that ball running across the landscape, forget it. You'll have to ask Google. So right now we're at the stage where we've got terrible hallucinations. They don't represent the world. This is a very sad picture. I do this regularly, not too regularly because it uses a lot of juice. And, there's a whole sustainability question about AI. I think it takes several litres of water to produce one image, really sadly. They've started to limit their policies. So now you get these weird symbols, but they've learned to limit the size of the office so as not to look quite so stupid. But the minute you put another contextual layer on it, like show me a sustainable, accessible office, you go back to this one. So obviously there's issues around truth claims as well as sort of accurate representation. This is from the marvelous BBC Verify. You probably remember this a few months ago when Trump was standing for to be the Republican nominee. This one, hanging out with black guys on a porch, actually pretty convincing. Never happened. Thank you to BBC Verify for that. One of the few reasons why it looks accurate is there's no fingers. Then they publish this, and there's a guy with a slightly missing finger on the left, and you can see where Trump's finger is interacting with this woman's shoulder. Well, his sausage fingers are pretty weird anyway, but there's like an interaction with her black skin that doesn't work with his finger. Your job, our job, whether we're documentarians or image makers, excuse me, is to be the eyes. And, you know, your job, or rather the industry or the regulator's job, is to set new standards and keep up. But actually, individual pressure on various platforms, calling stuff out on social media, that is a form of activism. And the more people do it, the less people can get away with it. I mean, Trump is actually a brilliant example of just how far you can push things and hope to get away with it. I'm not sure he really cares if he does or he doesn't. But, you know, I think as image creators, I can imagine in a few years' time, maybe less, we'll start to get under pressure to create imagery that isn't real. I think those lines between fact and fiction will blur again. I mean, if you think about, certainly when I was in filmmaking in the 90s, when we started to make docudrama, there were some difficult lines between being clear about what was a representation and what was part of the documentary. That's going to become easier and easier to achieve. So we have to be really clear in our labeling. I'm not going to spend too long on AI and script writing, but of course, I think this is actually one of the main areas of threat and opportunity. So I was with Lenny Henry the other day. She says, just name dropping. And I know he started a new production company, and they were starting to meet with AI companies to learn, you know, what could this tool do for me from a research point of view? If I want to research, I don't know, an operation, a kind of obscure operation, what's the language I need for how that operation goes wrong? Could it do the research for me? There's a really brilliant little test you might do in the LA Times. I'll put the link in the chat after. If you look up latimes.com/projects/writers-strike-deal-AI, I'll put it in the chat when I come out of this presentation. It actually has a really fun guessing game between a script that's written by AI, bits of script that are written by AI, and bits that are not, and I got it wrong every single time. There's certain clues in there. It really likes to include the lighting at the beginning. But it is really hard to tell. Now, of course, this isn't contextualized, right? Across the course of a whole movie or a whole script, I think you probably would be able to tell. I think our humanity still wins out. And the beauty of a good director, a good actor, a good script writer is the way they bring things together, not just that they can mimic an individual scene or sentence, but it is going to get cleverer and better. And there's loads of substandard content that I think it probably could easily write at the moment. So let's not kid ourselves that everything's a work of genius. I think it could probably do certain TV shows relatively easily because they're designed to be formulaic. My slides are frozen. So what's that got to do with me?
Sorry, Angela. Sorry,
Yeah.
Angela. Sorry, Martin. While you're doing that, Grayson's got a question. Grayson, can I invite you on stage to ask your question, please?
I'm actually going to come out of my slides now because they're pretty much finished.
Let me just okay. So, right, no, look, will you continue and then we'll ask the question when you're finished. You continue.
No, that's it. That's it. I'm at the end. Please, Grayson, I'll come back to that.
Oh, please. Wonderful. Okay, let me show you on stage and invite you on stage. Let's invite you on stage to speak. Give it a second. Hopefully, yep, she's going to join us in a second. Give us 1 second as she joins us. Yeah, here she is. Wonderful.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hi,
we can hear you.
Hi. I was just curious because, like, I'm of Gen X, so this technology is a bit scary, and I'm a bit old school. I still like books. Like, I write all my notes in books, though. So I was wondering if you could suggest some educational, like, learning opportunities to understand how to use, leverage, and learn AI as a complete beginner. Because even still, like, people are always like, oh, use Chat GPT, and I'll go in and I'll try it, but it doesn't come out the way that I want it to. And so I know that I'm not using the right prompts and things like that. So I was just wondering if there was something like sort of education.
I mean, first of all, it's not just you. It's really early stage. So this is a disappointing answer in that there is no place to just learn to use it brilliantly and be able to magically, you know, generate. So there is such a thing as prompt engineering, and you can get slightly better at prompts. The one lie that sits at the heart of ChatGPT is if you ask it, do you learn? You know, do you learn? It'll say, I learned in a chat. So it claims that if you start with one image and then you try and iterate it and make it better, as I did with that disability scenario, it actually can get worse and worse. I ended up giving it the exact spec of ramps that you should use in building, 5 meters, no more than 1 in 12, going from one floor to another. And it got crazier and crazier. You end up in the middle of nowhere with something that's half ramp, half stairs. But it does not learn in one chat. Certainly the system doesn't learn, but it doesn't learn. So the text agent, the thing chatting with you, is actually different to the image generator. This was my big revelation the last few days. It claims to be learning, but the reason it's so frustrating is it doesn't. The text agent knows how to create the illusion of that, but actually the images, it generates a new image every time. So part of prompt engineering is, you know, a bit like when you're interviewing someone and you want them to get them to say the whole sentence. You've got to start, imagine you're starting again each time you give it a prompt, even in the same chat. So if I say, show me a disabled office or an accessible office, and it doesn't, I have to start again by saying, show me an accessible office, and this time put a lift. And then show me an accessible office and include a lift and a very low ramp. So you have to sort of keep repeating yourself, because it's not telling you, it's not doing what it says it's doing. Video isn't really there yet. So Sora launched this amazing video, which sort of claims to do the same as ChatGPT or DALL-E, but with video. That's not really there yet. It's a brilliant demo, but that's not a sort of consumer tool exactly yet. Midjourney is a bit more sophisticated, and it will give you a sort of photo real or cinematic image. I would suggest, though, looking at the Turing Foundation, because they've got some really brilliant online resources just for learning about these things in general, but you can't learn how to use it as a filmmaker just yet because the tools aren't there.
Can I also jump in? We have one of our leaders is a gentleman called Cassius Quillis, and he's written a fantastic book, AI Tools for Filmmakers, which is free to download. We'll make sure we put that in resources, and that's also online in our on our online platform. And he's just got some real basic suggestions on how to use ChatGPT. And I use something called Gamma for presentations, which just blows my mind. You put the prompt, write me a presentation about doing a festival, and it just does it for you. It's like, no, I didn't do that for this, I promise. But no, it's really amazing on how to use it. So you can also make sure, Gracie, that you contact me afterwards, or we'll make sure we put in resources. But we've got a copy of the book, and it's a download free. You can download the book for free, and he gives some basics like how to use it for post-production, how to use it for research, how to use and what tools and how. So and it will give you a kind of basic oversight.
Oh, I'd love to see what, but I would just say limit your expectations right now, because what you can actually achieve is minimal. It won't be long, but a lot of this stuff is R&D. A lot of the things you see online are the results of brilliant, R&D and marketing tools, as a kind of a precursor, a drum roll for what's to come, and it will come. I think language is a really interesting one right now. I actually don't think there's anything wrong with generating a bit of your com or whatever using it's to do with your prompts, and natural language processing, language learning is in a way much more accurate, and you can adjust that a bit. If you think about it, the way we learn to write, say, TV commentary, you've learned it because you've watched 100 of those. You've learned it because someone's corrected you 100 times, and you've learned it from everything you've absorbed around you. So AI is doing the same thing. I just think that you have to take responsibility for the truth claims of that and the hallucinations that generative AI has. And I don't know, there's levels of these things, right? Should you generate an entire film script from it? Probably not. Should you research the right way to express something you don't know about? Maybe, but these are tools. Let's not be afraid of them.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. We got any more? Thank you, Kristen. That was wonderful. Have we got any more questions? So how do you think, we do, excuse me. What is the end game for people who are continually developing AI? Can I invite the speaker in to come and answer that question? Let's see if we can. I like the interaction.
Really good question.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Thank you, Sharon. Please, you're on mute, sweetheart.
Am I on mute? I don't know how to get on.
Not anymore.
Hi, Sharon.
Oh, great. Hello. Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to, it was asking, I just want to know what the end game is, because I feel like you said that we're in the sort of the middle of where you're going to have this it's almost a research phase, and it's almost doing the development as we're going along, asking repeated questions and things. And I think it's just a case of, what is the end game? What are people pushing towards? What is it they actually want at the end of it? Because I mean, like, yeah, I'm a Gen X as well, and I worry about, jobs and things like that, and obviously work in drama space, so it's a lot of scripts and things. So I'm just trying to think, well, how far are they trying to push the envelope, and are we going to one day think that everything's going to be generated a certain way?
It's a really good question. I asked this myself amongst a room full of computer vision people, but of them, what's your goal here? And the answer that came back was rather scary. So if you're just in computer vision and you do that, it tends to be that everybody rushes into the same place to solve a problem. So, that might be about a technical issue around image generation. Everybody's currently trying to figure out, if you use this method called stable diffusion, how could you get it to do more photoreal or cinematic effects at scale? They'll ask themselves a very limited research question, but it's not necessarily going anywhere. When I kept asking that question over 2 days, eventually someone said, "Oh, for God's sake, Angela, it's to replace all humans." But, frankly, it is part of a capitalist network. It's part of the military industrial complex. And this is not a sort of humanitarian task, which is not to say that all computer, AI specialists are evil, but they're there to see if they can do it. And the context of that industrially is capitalism, is profit. The reason that actually something like the CoStar National Lab has, we've received the biggest ever amount of funding that the Arts and Humanities Research Council has put in, is that we develop these tools with industry. So we develop our own end game, which is, okay, what is the R&D we need to do to create something useful, to create. So for instance, if you take virtual production, it's that virtual production studios haven't really taken off yet, but I think that's partly because 5G is not very good yet. And as soon as you get a network of virtual production labs, you could suddenly make work for more disabled actors, more people who've got caring responsibilities, people who don't want to run around the world or the country the whole time filming and not having a family life. It is possible to do those things in a network of places if we develop a new grammar of filmmaking. Using game engine technology. So I would just say get involved, because actually then you start to shape the end game.
Exactly
And
that.
I'm still hesitant, because I feel like for me, it feels like we're moving to a further and further forward to a place where no one will have to work. Literally, I think that even though at the moment it may be okay, it's good for helping how you work, but eventually that feels like it will get to no one works, and then how do we feed ourselves? I mean, that's, is it some utopia where they're going to say, right, you don't have to work, but we're going to, but you're going to have money somehow? I find it really scary. So I just want to hope someone's asking those questions or looking at that.
There's an amazing chat on TED, which I'll try and find, where he talks about the evolution of humans into kind of artificial intelligence. Was just such a mind-blowing process, that the evolution, that it would kind of contain our memories and our stuff for us as a physical. Just the conversations are absolutely mind-blowing. I'll find it and put it on the online platform. But yeah, there are so many things to consider. But I think what Angela says is the most important thing, is that it's at this stage, while it's developing and it's new, it's so important for us to be part of it, because then we kind of start to shape the direction in which it's going. I know it can be scary, but it's so important that we dive in or have an understanding, so we can kind of call out those biases, call out those things that we know are not right, rather than kind of letting it roll away and then it's too late when we're like, oh my God, this isn't
be
working.
articulate in the debate. And there's nothing you can't learn off the internet at the moment, and other than how the black box works, because the people who made it don't know. But I agree with you. I think to look so far forward is necessary. There's quite a lot of sort of design fiction work going on. If you look out for stuff, there's quite a lot of these kind of design fiction is where we imagine ourselves in the future, the distant future, not the near future, and engage in these debates. But I'm actually more concerned about the next 5 years. So if you thought about the next 5 years, well, I've got the opportunity now to work with skill set, to work with people thinking about what happens to jobs in the next period. How do we need to reskill? So these are just tools that we engage with and we control to an extent. I think the job of diversity workers and people interested in representation will become much more interesting. I think we'll go through a sort of arch phase where documentary plays with ideas and test it. I call it AI's got jokes, because it's so bad at the moment. You can expose all its foibles, but we have to engage on that level, both to mock it to test it, to call it out, to call out big tech. I mean, in a way, they're quite conservative because they get a massive backlash if things aren't quite right. So, you can be a sort of activist consumer, you can be an activist filmmaker. You have to be in it to win it. You have to engage in the debate. So I'm really ambivalent about AI myself, but you're not going to stop the tide. So you may as well be educated.
Yeah.
Wonderful. We've got a few minutes left.
Share it.
Thank you so much, Sharon. That was a really good question. And I think kind of spoke to what we're all feeling. There's a sense of excitement, but there's also a sense of trepidation in terms of what we're going to open up. Just before we kind of close, have we got any? Okay,
I want to poll.
Yeah. Go. Oh, silly Lily, did you have a question?
Always.
Hello, Lily.
I've always got a question. Hi, Dr. Chan. So I'm not Gen X. I'm a fair bit younger. So the kind of AI stuff, yeah, thank you. But the AI stuff, it's mostly being marketed to me and my friends. And for us, I would say, as a filmmaker, the ecological impact of generating these things is absolutely horrifying. Actually, let's be honest, it's horrifying. We're already living past the point of no return for a full global climate collapse, and we seem to be, instead of sort of helping to slow or stop it, we're just, I don't know, just spending liters and liters of water creating buildings that can't envision a ramp at the moment. Is there any work you're sort of doing on helping to sort of cap that kind of impact? Well, we're talking about Endgame, and I know your tech mate made a joke about replacing all humans. What about the trees, Dr. Chan?
Well, let's hope there's some humans to be replaced. I'm also head of sustainability for the lab. That is yet to get off the ground because it's quite hard to engage people in this debate for that very reason. I mean, it's interesting. When I've read other reports about the TV industry or the advertising industry, still the amount of energy used, particularly with the film industry, a huge percentage of it is in flights and shoots. That will change. It'll become energy generation through the use of AI tools, I should think. At the moment, you can solve one ill by bringing in another. So one of the most important things, now sounds really boring, is benchmarking, actually understanding if this production were done virtually, would it actually save energy, or would it just burn a different type of energy in a different way? So some of that benchmarking, every time we develop a tool, and it really is early days, we will do what they call A/B testing. So old technology, where we are generating that thing, new technology generating that thing, but can we predict that will become more efficient in 2 years' time? So we're doing these kind of small benchmarks, and there's quite a lot of studies out there if you're interested around virtual production and savings. But again, it's sort of trade-offs. There's some really interesting stuff going on with things like spatial audio. Sometimes it'll be small things that could make a big difference. So every time you go out on a shoot, Foley guy for a movie, a Foley guy has to go and continue. They have to continue shooting. They can't strike the set until the Foley guy has gone and done the door closing and all the other bits he needs. There is technology now which can generate just those sounds from nothing, from code. So always the energy you use to generate something artificially will be offset against the cost of sending a ton of people physically to shoot. We don't actually have the data yet to measure. There have been measurements done, but it's really important to just know technology by technology what that's saving and start to put it together in a bigger picture. But I mean, that's why it's important that there's publicly funded programs that can ask those questions, because big tech doesn't really want to know.
Thank you. We've got probably one last question before we kind of close. And obviously I'll show
I'm
the question.
going to put my poll up while you're asking it.
I'm going to put your poll up. Sorry, let me show this question. Hold on, let me just show this question, invite this question on, and then I'm going to put the poll up while you're asking this question. Oh, she's gone because she's on a mobile phone. But just Jay Davison asked the question, is it the responsibility of people of colour to protect biases in generative AI imagery, as it's tiring already enough in real life? I don't know. It's a
question, but you notice I never said that. I actually think it's everybody's job. And it's not just colour, it's gender. And so the more white men I can bash over the head and say, come be an ally, speak out, and actually there are quite a lot of allies out there who want to fix that stuff. I don't think it's your job to point it out, but it's not your job. Hopefully it becomes such a standard thing that everybody will call it out. But yeah, responsibility, I don't know. I feel obliged. I'm also not black, you know, but I think it's I think it's everybody's responsibility who chooses to engage with that debate is something else, but it affects a lot of people. Like I'm particularly offended by the disability stuff on behalf of disabled people I've known, but you know, call it out. But I try not to do that search too often for all the reasons that Lily points out. You know, I have like a sort of 2 monthly schedule to check in. But then I'm in a position of responsibility to point it out, you know, in my job. So,
Well,
but yeah,
I think
very,
that's
very good question.
before we kind of sign off, obviously it's 4 o'clock, we want to sign off, and I know we're back online soon. Give us 3 tips in terms of how we should start engaging or thinking about AI and immersive content as content producers? What advice would you give?
I think look ahead. So convergent screen technology we haven't even got onto, but if you look at stuff about the Sphere in LA, if you go to as much immersive content, you know, as many events as you can, because the way screen technology with 3-dimensional experience is coming together, I find quite exciting. You're not stuck on a 2D screen. That doesn't have to be your only experience of content making, and there'll be more investment, I think, in live in the future. Number 2 is just like really scan the internet and resources and follow social media so that you can get involved. Final Pixel have done some fantastic virtual production courses. You know, people like the Watershed Immersive Arts are offering money for opportunities. It's totally transferable. They really like filmmakers moving into that new space. So take a look at that stuff. I would say just educate yourself. Find every opportunity to ask why rather than just be terrified. Start asking why all the time, because you know the answers, oh god, it sounds like the X-Files, the answer's out there, or maybe it's not, but you know, you need to be part of that debate. And I can see some of the people here I've known since I was at the beginning of my career are very influential now. Just start calling it out all the time, because soon enough those tools will be real and in your production pipeline, and you need to decide where you stand on them before you meet it at the end of your credit.